Coming up on the Leadership Growth Podcast, one of our clients over the years, a 100-year-old manufacturing firm, and they were going through massive change. I was helping work with the CEO and his executive team and leading the top 40 leaders through this change transformation. And I'll never forget the CEO was saying one time, we have 100 years of waxy buildup that we need to scrape off and we need to remove. And waxy buildup, immediately I'm picturing some sort of dental cleaning moment. And the visual is like, it's
the imagery is so powerful.
Yeah, so powerful. And so this waxy buildup, we need to address the waxy buildup and successfully reshape, redo, honor the past while still moving forward. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Growth Hour. I'm Daniel Stewart with my brother, Peter. Peter, say hi.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Glad you can join us again for another episode.
Fantastic. So Leadership Growth Hour, the podcast, or Leadership Growth Podcast, where we're able to then talk about timely, relevant leadership topics to help you grow your ability to lead effectively. So welcome back. Let's dive in, Peter. Let's dive into something interesting this week. What have you heard? What's going on? What's something that stands out? We'll start off with this.
Sure. Good question. It's always nice to just pause and reflect on the week and think, okay, yeah, what are some of those insights? So I have done some coaching this week with a few folks having 360-degree assessments. And I won't say all the time, but often there comes up the question of blind spots as they start to get feedback from others, and they think, what do you mean? How could they not think I'm a good listener to, or I'm not communicating well, or I'm not delegating well? And it reminds me just of the gem that I've heard for many years now. You know, we judge ourselves by our intentions. Others judge us by our actions. And getting that feedback and really helping to change and validate, are we coming across truly the way we are intending? And how are we open to the feedback to be able to get that? So I think it's that time to pause, do a little reflection, see where are the blind spots, because we've all got them.
Oh, that's so awesome. And okay, so I'll add to that then. One of the things I was going to share, so the International Coaching Federation has come out with some great return on investment or return on impact of coaching. And so building off of the importance and amazing ability to be able to broaden our own perspective versus just viewing it in one way, they've come out and they've been able to show the research indicates that we can achieve a 70% improvement in our individual performance through great one-on-one coaching.
70%.
70%.
And I'm not a math major, but that's a big improvement.
You're right. You're not a math major. Yes, 70%. And you think, all right, what enables somebody through one-on-one coaching to achieve a 70% increase? And so much of it is helping expand the awareness, the perception beyond our own thinking. It's to get out of our own mind and to address these self-limiting beliefs, to be able to challenge ourselves differently, connecting ideas. So I read that. I'm like, yes, this is absolutely, it's consistent with our experience, and it can even be beyond 70% at times. Sometimes it's less, but it really depends on what the person is willing to do with that coaching, how open, how they're willing to really put themselves into it and expand.
Yeah. And really it's how much they engage in it, take advantage, like you're saying, because that's a powerful statistic. And ultimately we could dive deeper into a lot of that analysis. It's coaching is itself a forcing function to pause. It forces you to pull up out of the weeds for a set period of time
Yeah.
whether it's 45 minutes or an hour or whatever the frequency or duration might be. But it forces you to stop and not just think about what you're trying to get done, but how you're doing it. And it's funny as I think about a lot of the theory, even as I was having my clinical training in grad school and all the different theories of psychology. And for those, I don't know if we've talked as much about it. My background is a clinical psychologist. And there's arguments over different theories of psychology, as most folks are well aware of. And what the longitudinal research shows is that the type and the methods really don't account for the largest percentage of growth and progress. They don't account for the largest percentage of variance. They get chalked up to what are called common factors. Just these common factors, how well do you get along with a therapist? Do they feel relatable? It's carving out that time to stop and to think and focus on your own self-improvement. So I think a part of that could probably spill over into some of the analysis of the coaching time of just setting that aside makes a difference. It makes an impact.
Oh, I love it. And to build on that, and you may do this too. I know a lot of our coaches do this. At the end of every session, every coaching session, I'll inevitably ask the executive I'm working with, what am I going to be asking you the next time we meet? And at first they're like, what do you mean? I say, what questions am I going to be asking you that you are going to be emphasizing and working on? And then they just know at the end of every session, I'm always going to ask, and I'll write down the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 questions, and they know I'm going to ask those the next time. And they're inevitably relating to the very issues that they need to focus on.
Yeah.
And so there's a built-in follow-up. So not only is a coaching session an opportunity to pause and to reflect, but there's a built-in accountability when you have a coach who's focused on what they need to do and to follow up with that as well. And then you can start to see dramatic improvement in performance because they're held to it. Yeah.
Oh, very much. And they get used to. I do the same. At the end of coaching sessions, what are the 2 questions you want me to ask you next time we meet? And they get ready for it. They know it. It's the pattern after doing this for several sessions. And it's that built-in accountability. And that's where you look at this research of return. And when you add in methods that improve accountability, they increase.
Yeah.
And that adds so much because then it makes it practical. It's not like, okay, yeah, I just, had this time spent thinking off in the ether about all this theory. It's no, we're drawing it right back down to what's going to make an impact in your role right here, right now for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, so focused, correct, action oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, love it. And in fact, Peter, maybe this is a segue into
I love the segues.
into a memory lane. And so here's my request. You mentioned your PhD.
Yes.
What's a memory lane? I'm going to put you on the spot. What's a memory lane comment, story, experience from your PhD days? Where did you get your PhD? What's something? Just tell the listeners a little about yourself on that one.
Sure. So I got my PhD at the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, all those out there in Lawrence. Great place. And one of my memories, one of my advisors, Michael Roberts was his name, phenomenal psychologist, great human being, learned a lot from him. But he also, a lot like Dad, taught with sayings and little analogies and lessons. And I remember one time when we were in a research lab meeting, and he was telling this story about how his grandmother would cut the ends off of the ham before baking it. And he asked why. And she's like, I don't know. Turns out as they kind of went back a couple of generations and were asking folks, originally that started happening because the ham was too big for the pan. But then somebody had watched that they do it and pass it on and pass it on. And so that was a lesson at that point to not just continue to do things the same way that you just saw other people do it, but to be sure you're asking the questions of why. is that the best method? Do I really understand it? Because there may be a very good reason. But it also could just be tradition that's not necessarily important.
Oh,
so don't keep cutting the ham off.
I remember you've shared that experience over the years, the cutting off the ham. And of course you're like, why would anybody do that? Because there's nothing wrong with the end of the ham. You might as well eat it. I mean, you might as well serve and cook it. But no. So you're reminding me, one of our clients over the years, 100-year-old manufacturing firm, and they were going through massive change. I was helping work with the CEO and his executive team and leading the top 40 leaders through this change transformation. And I'll never forget, the CEO was saying one time, we have 100 years of waxy buildup that we need to scrape off and we need to remove. And waxy buildup, immediately I'm picturing some sort of dental cleaning moment. And the visual is like, it's
the imagery is so powerful.
Yeah, so powerful. And so this waxy buildup, we need to address the waxy buildup and successfully reshape, redo, honor the past while still moving forward and recognizing what we have been doing is not necessarily what we need to be doing moving forward, for sure. Oh, okay. Well, memory lane, do you mind if I share a graduate school memory lane on this one? You share.
What's your trip down memory lane?
So I got my master's at University of Colorado Boulder, which is having a fantastic attention-grabbing year this year with their new head coach for the football team. Anyway, so there you go. But what I'll mention is, as I was getting my graduate degree there, one of the professors, Stan Dietz, he was on my committee, great guy. I was taking a class from him, organizational change. And he would sit down at the beginning of every class. And, there are like 15, 16 of us in this class. And it was like a 3-hour class. And he would sit down at the very beginning. He'd cross his legs and look at us and simply say, "What questions do you have?" The first night you're like, where are the slides? Where's the read? You went, And that's how it went every night or every time we met. And we learned so much because we learned to come with questions. And I'll never forget, he said, the order for a smart person, you're like, okay, I hope I'm smart. But anyway, for a smart person, it does not matter the order in which you learn something. Because smart people can make sense of it and put it into a sequence and an order and make sense of it. The point is to just dive in. And it's a powerful, not only what questions do you have and come ready with questions, but also to recognize wherever you're at, just dive in. Yeah. Just dive in and keep making as much sense of it as you can. So anyway, there you go. Memory lane at the University of Colorado at Boulder.
Oh, that's awesome, Daniel. And before we leave that, you're just highlighting there of diving in. And there's that tendency that so many of us of trying to figure out what is the perfect way to broach something. What is the perfect project plan or the way to set the stage for what? And more often than not, that doesn't matter. It's just start trying. Just dive in, start working on it, and make sense of it later. Not to say you operate on this total cavalier, shoot from the hip approach all the time. Right. You're still thoughtful about it, but it doesn't have to be perfect to get going. The whole agile philosophy of an MVP, of minimal viable product. It's just, what can you get out there that's going to start to answer the question or solve the problem? And then prototype 2 and 3 and 4 and just iterate from there.
Oh, yeah. Great points. Good points.
Good lessons.
Okay. Are you ready for the topic of the day, Peter?
Let's go.
Okay. Topic of the day. First-time managers. How do you help managers transition from an individual contributor to becoming a manager? And even as I say first-time managers, that's a misnomer because there are so many directors and VPs and presidents who are still working through this transition from an individual contributor to a manager of people. That transition is the hardest transition anyone makes in their leadership journey. And it takes so much time and effort to be able to make that transition. So we have 8 different transition points that we need to consider as this transition is helping or enabling that to happen. So shall we tackle some here?
Let's tackle them. Let's go through, because this, as you said, it's applicable to so many. And as we always have that pause to reflect, being a people leader, a people manager, you're never done. There's no, okay, I figured it out. I'm perfect now. No.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. So the invitation for all the listeners here, as we're going through several of these transition points, and we'll put some of the articles and resources, of course, in the show notes, and you can take a look at it. My invitation is to be able to think through, where are you on these transition points? Because to what Peter, I love how you phrase that, Peter, you're never done. I mean, this stuff is ever evolving because the very nature of it is messy and in the gray. And it's not just, I know this, check. No. It's the doing of it. That's where the art and the science come into play. Okay, so let's tackle the first 2. The first one is one way to many ways. And the second, doing to delegating. Doing to delegating. So one way to many ways. Peter, when I say that as a transition point, what does that mean for a manager?
You don't have to just do it the way you've always done it. And your team doesn't have to do it exactly the way you may have done that as a manager. So it's beginning to just loosen that grip of the precise, process focused, it must be done the way I prefer, to then give them some space, some liberty to start to get it done their way. Now, it might not work all the time, the first time, and there may be some failures, but it's an opportunity for them to begin to learn and develop their path. And lo and behold, it might even be better than the way you used to do it. But it's being open to that.
Yeah. This is so dang hard because you get so focused in terms of doing one thing one way, and then suddenly you're managing a group of people and they all have opinions and they have suggestions. Yep. And they want a suggestion, they want to do things, and it's so challenging. I often will work with leaders and suggest, what's the what and then the how, and make sure the what, you as a leader need to be able to be very explicit about identifying what needs to happen. But the how we're going to get there, how does it look? That can be far more open, especially for experienced folks on the team. If somebody is less experienced, you may need to help define that. Or if there's a high reliability situation, the variance allowed is very minimal. Okay, maybe we need to get more dictated and intentional around the how. However, try to allow as much freedom with the how as possible.
That's so well said. So that you don't end up becoming the dreaded 4-letter word of industry, a micromanager. I mean, I know it's a lot more than 4 letters. Chalk it up to the spelling challenges. But you know what I mean? Nobody wants to work for a micromanager, and most people, when they're honest, don't want to be a micromanager because it takes far too much time, and it takes you away from that ability to delegate, which then is right that second point we were talking to, is that shift from doing to delegating. You cannot give them the freedom to do if you're dictating exactly how they're supposed to do it.
Oh, I love it. So I was just working with a client yesterday in Dallas, and one of the managers who was in this session, she was like, yes, but I don't want to micromanage. I don't want to have to follow up so much. I don't. And I just kind of timed out. I said, wait a minute, let's do a timeout. Let's be clear. You as a manager, you as a leader, setting clear expectations and then identifying when you'll be able to follow up with people, that's not micromanaging. No. Micromanaging is more when you don't set clear expectations, or even if you do not set expectations when you're following up. So then it's a continual surprise. Hi, I'm here again. Hi, I'm here. I'm going to keep following up. Instead of when the person expects and understands when you show up, and they know what they need to do when you show up. And for you to then be able to be open, to be clear as well. Again, one to many, but then also to help manage that perception of micromanaging. No, set clear expectations as well as the follow-up to be able to enable that to be more successful and productive.
Yeah, and I love the way you described that, because it helps it become a productive process and not an adventure in mind reading, in which you're trying to help them figure out what it is what you want them to do. And I don't know about you, but I don't have ESP. I don't have special powers to read minds. We're not, what is it, Avatar? They've got those blue things that they stick in the back of each other's heads. We can't do that. So when you're able to be clear, you're able to very clear, clarify what is. That's not micromanaging. That's providing clear expectations. Then you're able to pivot to really what the next sections of 3 and 4, it's pivot from solving the problem for them to anticipating the problems. And then from having it be a defined role to a little bit more ambiguous in terms of the how.
Yeah. And this solving the problem, that is an individual contributor. Yes, I need to solve the problem that I'm given. Oftentimes the scope is fairly well articulated, or you can articulate it and it's understood, and you solve it. Okay, great. As a manager, your job is to anticipate the problems. You should be able to look ahead 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 steps ahead and start thinking, what are those future problems? Not just the one right in front of me. And that can be so tricky, but yet it's to lift the head and to see a bigger picture, to anticipate some of this.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Because if you're just head down in the weeds getting things done, you don't have that ability to take that step up and see, okay, yeah, what's over the next hill? What's over the next horizon? What is coming back? Are we running out of budget? Do we not have the resources necessary? Are there impediments to being able to accomplish what needs to get done? And that's what your role is beginning to look more. You're not just getting it done. It's how do you help ensure that your team has the resources they need?
And yet the challenge is, once I begin to anticipate this, and I then have to dive into ambiguity, complexity, uncertainty, places that I may or may not feel very comfortable. Some people feel more comfortable there than others. It's
very true.
A single problem we're trying to define clearly and solve. It's looking out, anticipating the risks, anticipating the problems, dealing with the ambiguity, dealing with the grayness, and not necessarily having the right answer or having it clean and clearly identified. And not having the right answer or not having a path to it makes managers and leaders very uncomfortable. And it's understandable.
Yeah.
We want to have the right answer, but there is this inherent myth, this inherent belief that as a manager, I need to have all of the answers. I know exactly what we need to do at all times. Instead, you can then have a process. Mm-hmm. You can provide guidance. You can then explain the ambiguity. You can identify it. You can define it. You can begin to look at it But folks will look to you to anticipate and to have a level of comfort with the ambiguity itself.
Oh, and you hit on that myth, which is so important. It is okay for a leader, a new manager, and I'd frankly say I say a leader at any level, but particularly a new manager, to be able to say these words, I don't know. It is okay to not know everything because you have a team. We can figure this out together. And maybe it's something that hasn't been done before. That shouldn't stop us. We can figure out a way to do that. So it's being comfortable in that space.
You reminded me, one of an executive I worked with several years ago, he would get so uptight when he was in an uncomfortable moment that he didn't have the answer for. And what he would typically do was draw upon previous answers that were insufficient, or he would withdraw and he would no longer be communicating as frequently, as openly with his team. And then we were able to talk about this and talk about the idea of how often are you withdrawing, or how often are you relying upon old tracks, old speaking points, versus putting yourself in a new circumstance, the new situation. And it took about 2 years for him to gain the confidence to expand beyond what he felt he needed to always know. And I'm telling you, the engagement on his team started to continue to increase. The more he was open, the more he was transparent, not saying I'm abdicating. No, I'm there with you. Let's figure this out together. And people started to then just even more engagement with him as well.
Oh, as you're sharing that, it reminds me of somebody that I was coaching recently, leader of a large team, whose their personality type, their words have a lot of currency. Okay. They don't like to waste words, and they don't like to give an answer unless they are 100% certain it is the accurate answer.
Yeah.
And so as a result, they'd sit back in meetings and not comment on many things, or when asked a question, would not fully answer it, or just say, well, we're going to have to do further analysis and research on that. And it led to this perception that they weren't really wanting to be involved. But it wasn't a motivation error or deficit there. It was an insistence on, well, how can I answer that question when I don't have all of the data behind it? And so it's being able to work with the various personality types and recognize it is okay to operate in this gray space, in this area of ambiguity, in which the burden does not fall solely on just you as the leader to have all those answers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's just hit one or two other ones here.
Sure.
Let's touch upon one that often strikes a nerve with people. Oh, this is going to be.
Oh, this is a good lead in. Ready?
The transition from being a friend to being friendly. That, especially when you are then now a manager over the people that you used to be a peer with.
Yes.
How do you manage that? Because you want to be friends and you care about people. And in this Zoom Teams world, you see into everybody's living room or dining room or bedroom, all of their offices. You get to know them. Yes, we need to get to know and build strong rapport. However, what is the challenge, Peter, about being a friend, and why do we need to be friendly instead of that friend?
Yeah. It is. It's a common challenge that happens so often. And especially for those that might be more extroverted or socially driven, it can be a hard distinction to make, because you're not just a peer where you're supporting each other and even complaining about whatever's going on or going out for drinks and whatnot. But you have to be able to know them as humans, but yet being able to hold them accountable to the goals, the expectations, the commitments that they've made, being able to provide that direct feedback for their own development, for the benefit of them, for the benefit of the organization, as company policies are implemented. sometimes you have to be the bad guy in terms of rolling out and notifying and sharing what these new policies are, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. That is a part of your role. So you have this, in some ways, a dual relationship, which gets tedious. And everybody balances that a little different way. And the problems occur when people are not intentional about the line that they create in terms of when is the friend shift over to the boss and whatnot, and where's that boundary.
Oh, this is great. And in fact, here's my recommendation. We're approaching time here. We may have to do a part 2, Peter, because we are just beginning to scratch the surface on some of these, even just the 8 areas. And so let's kind of pause this. We'll dive in and let's do a part 2 as we keep on talking through, because this transition point is so key from an individual contributor to a manager. So let's do a lightning round here in the last minute or two to wrap up. What's the question you want to, or actually, let me ask you the first question, and then you can ask me the next one. Okay, so Peter, in your view, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give a new manager?
The one piece of advice, good question. One piece of advice I'd give a new manager is to ask this question often. What support do you need from me? It takes away the assumption that you know exactly what they need. It gives them the opportunity to voice the challenges they might be facing, and you're able to keep tabs. And it's a question you can ask often. And I don't care what level manager you're at. What support do you need from me to be successful?
Well said. Well said.
Thanks. So lightning round back to you then.
Yeah.
All right. So you are a new manager. You're a manager of a team, and you now have a new manager on your team. So you're this new manager's manager. Okay. What advice would you give for that manager on how to best lead this new manager joining their team?
Awesome. Okay. So one piece of advice for managing a new manager. I'm going to give 2 pieces.
2 pieces. Why not?
The first one, set clear expectations for your team, period. That is the first role of a manager, is to set clear expectations for your team. What is expected? What does it look like? And be crystal clear about it, memorialize it, write it down, make sure they can repeat it, understand it. And the second, follow up. Follow up, follow up. Make sure that you then follow up on these expectations in your weekly one-on-ones, in your staff meetings, in your conversations, and you provide feedback and follow-up input, catching them doing things right, and then also providing constructive feedback so that they can then keep growing and accomplishing the expectations so they can feel like they're making a difference. There you go. That's what I'd recommend.
That's great advice. And especially that last part, just to put an exclamation point. So they feel like they're making a difference. And I'll put you on the spot. How many people have you coached or interacted with that don't want to do well? I mean, it's a silly question. I mean, there are not many people out there in the professional world that their goal today is I'm going to try and just be mediocre. Most people,
they want to achieve. They want to make a difference. They want to make an impact. That's a fact.
So you have that a tremendous opportunity to help be a catalyst for the impact they can make as a manager and as a leader. So, well, I'm excited for part 2 of this as we keep talking about new managers.
We'll have to do it soon. That's great. Okay, folks, all the listeners, thanks for joining us on the Leadership Growth Podcast. Please subscribe, of course, and all the best. Talk to you everybody later. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, or better yet, leave a review to help other listeners find our show. And remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more great content or to learn about how Stewart Leadership can help you grow your ability to lead effectively, please visit stewardleadership.com.